Stop waiting. Start becoming. Welcome to Becoming with Beck, the podcast for those ready to shift their mindset, lead themselves, and manifest intentionally. If you know you're meant for more, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Hello and welcome back to Becoming with Beck. I'm your host, Beck Robinson, and thank you so much for joining me today. Now, if you don't follow me on Instagram, firstly, why not? Go over and follow at Becoming with Beck. Secondly, if you do, you would have seen I created a daily quantum identity shift practice for you. It's essentially a 2-page worksheet and an almost 9-minute audio to help align your identity, your thoughts, and your actions with your future self. So if that is something you are interested in and would find helpful, it's linked in the description for you to go ahead and purchase. Now, today we are talking about Neville Goddard. If you've listened to my previous episode, you would have heard me mention his name in that episode. And if you have never heard that name before, do not worry, because by the end of this episode, you are going to understand why most people who discover his work often describe it as the thing that changed everything for them. Neville Goddard was a spiritual teacher and an author who lived from 1905 to 1972. He was not a mainstream figure at the time. He was not on television. He did not have a podcast, obviously, but he lectured for decades, wrote a series of books, and left behind a body of work that has quietly influenced millions of people. And in recent years, particularly with the rise of the manifestation conversation online, his teachings have had an enormous resurgence because what he is talking about is not trend dependent. It is not a technique or a hack. It is a law, a fundamental, consistent, unchanging law of how consciousness and reality actually work. So whether you are completely new to this world or whether you have been down the manifestation rabbit hole for a while and something has always felt like it was missing, I think today is going to give you something really solid to hold on to. So first, who was this man? Neville Goddard was born in Barbados, moved to New York as a young man, and he spent most of his adult life as a lecturer and a writer in the United States. He was deeply influenced by the mystical interpretation of scripture, though his teachings were not religious in the traditional sense. He used biblical language and imagery, but what he was really talking about was the nature of consciousness itself. His core message, and I want you to really hear this because it is the thread that runs through everything. And it was that God is not an external being sitting somewhere outside of you, waiting to grant or withhold your desires. God, in Neville's teaching, is your own consciousness, your own awareness, your own imagination. He said, and this is one of my favorite things he ever wrote, imagination is not a step toward reality. It is reality itself. Now, I know that might sound abstract right now, but stay with me because by the time we get through this episode, that statement is going to make complete, practical, lived sense to you. Neville wrote several books, the most well-known being The Power of Awareness, Feeling is the Secret, and At Your Command. They are short, dense, and absolutely worth reading, but today I'm going to break down the core concepts in plain language so that you can start working with them immediately. Everything in Neville's work begins with one law, the law of assumption. And here it is in its simplest form: whatever you assume to be true at a deep, settled, unquestioned level becomes your lived experience. Not what you hope is true, not what you wish were true, what you assume is true. Now, let me make sure we are really clear on what an assumption is because it is different from a thought. A thought is something that passes through your mind. You think it, you notice it, it moves on. An assumption is something you have stopped questioning. It is a belief so embedded that it has become a part of your lens, the way you see yourself, the way you see the world, the way you interpret everything that happens to you. Most of us have hundreds of assumptions running silently in the background. Things like, money is hard to come by, I have to work twice as hard as everyone else, good things happen to other people, I am not the kind of person who gets lucky, I always struggle with this. They are not conscious decisions, they are stories that were handed to us by our families, our experiences, our culture, and that we accepted without realizing we were accepting them. And because we accepted them, they became the mold our lives have begun filling ever since. Think about a mold you use for baking. Whatever shape the mold is, that is the shape the cake takes. The mixture does not argue with the mold, it just fits it perfectly. Your life is the mixture. Your assumptions are the mold, and your life has been filling them perfectly, exactly as they were shaped. Now here's where it gets really powerful, and where Neville's teaching separates from most of what you hear about manifestation. He was not saying think positive thoughts and good things will happen. He was saying something far more precise. He was saying your dominant assumption, the thing you accept as simply true at the deepest level, is what your subconscious uses as its blueprint to organize your reality. This is why positive thinking alone does not work. You can repeat I am abundant 100 times a day while simultaneously holding a deep assumption that money is scarce and hard to come by, and the assumption will win every single time, because the assumption is not on the surface, it is in the foundation. Changing your life in Neville's framework means changing the assumption, not the actions, not the strategy, not the circumstances, the assumption. Everything else follows from there. One of the most striking things Neville taught was this: your outer world is always a perfect mirror of your inner world. Not sometimes, not when you do the work consistently, always. Every relationship in your life, every pattern that keeps repeating, every door that keeps opening or slamming shut, every way that people treat you, it is all reflecting back to you what you are currently assuming at your deepest level. Now, I know that might be confronting. It can feel like, wait, are you saying everything bad in my life is my fault? And I want to address that directly, because this is where people often either get defensive or spiral into self-blame, and neither of those are useful. This is not about fault. Fault implies you did something wrong. Most of the assumptions running your life were absorbed before you had any conscious ability to choose them. You were a child. You were just taking in the world around you and forming beliefs about how it works and where you fit in it. That is not your fault, but it is your responsibility now as an adult who is aware of this, because now you can choose. Think about looking into a mirror. If you do not like what you see, the hair is messy, the expression looks tired, you do not lean into the mirror and try to fix the reflection. You go to the source. You fix your hair, you change your expression, the reflection changes automatically. You cannot change the mirror by touching the glass. You have to change what is standing in front of it. Your life is the mirror. You are what is standing in front of it. Change the inner, and the outer has no choice but to follow. This reframe is everything, because it means you are not at the mercy of your circumstances. You are the creator of them. And the moment you genuinely take that on board, not just intellectually, but in your bones, everything shifts. You stop trying to control, fix, or manage the outside world. You stop reacting to every reflection with fear or frustration. You start working with the only thing that actually has creative power, your own consciousness. Neville wrote an entire book called The Feeling is the Secret, and the title is the whole teaching in 4 words. Because here is what people miss when they start working with these ideas. It is not the visualization that does the work. It is not the words you say. It is not the vision board on your wall or the affirmations in your journal. It is the feeling, the genuine, embodied, deeply felt sense of your desire actually fulfilled. Your subconscious mind does not process language. It does not respond to words. It responds to feeling, to the emotional state you are living in most consistently. And it is constantly taking that emotional state as its instruction and organizing your outer world to match. So when you genuinely feel abundant, not performing it, actually feeling it from the inside out, your subconscious receives abundance as its instruction and begins creating the circumstances of abundance in your life. And when you feel stuck, limited, not enough, even if you are saying all the right words on the surface, your subconscious receives that feeling as its instruction and it creates accordingly. Think about a thermostat. You set the temperature and the heating system does whatever it needs to do to reach and maintain that temperature. It does not judge the setting. It does not decide whether the temperature is deserved. It just works toward whatever the thermostat is set at. Your emotional state is the thermostat. Your subconscious is the heating system. It works toward whatever feeling you are most consistently radiating without judgment, without question, without fail. Now I know the next question is the one everyone asks at this point. It is, but how do I genuinely feel abundant when my bank account says otherwise? How do I feel successful when my business is still small? Is that not just lying to myself? And this is the crucial distinction Neville makes. You are not trying to manufacture a feeling that belongs to your current circumstances. You are choosing to inhabit a different set of circumstances in your imagination and the feelings that belong there. Because your imagination is not separate from reality, it is the source of it. What exists vividly and consistently in your imagination will, by law, eventually externalize into your physical experience. Not because of magic, but because of how consciousness works. The feeling in imagination impresses the subconscious. The subconscious organizes reality. Reality reflects the impression. That is the sequence, and it works every single time. This brings us to the most powerful phrases in all of Neville's work. Living in the end. You would have heard me mention this in the previous episode. Most of us are orientated toward our goals from a position of not having them yet. We are working toward the thing, striving for it, moving in its direction from a starting point of lack. Neville said, skip all of that. Go straight to the end. In your imagination, in your feeling, in your assumption, go directly to the point where it is already done, already fulfilled, already yours, and you live from there. Not toward it, from it. What does this look like practically? It means choosing a specific scene, a short, simple sensory moment of your desire already fulfilled, and returning to it consistently in your imagination until it feels completely natural, until your subconscious treats it as a memory rather than a fantasy. The scene should be quiet and ordinary rather than dramatic, not standing on a stage receiving an award unless that is genuinely what feels natural to you. More like a quiet moment at your desk doing work you love, feeling completely at peace. Picking up your phone and glancing at your bank balance without any anxiety. A conversation with someone where they reflect back to you exactly who you know yourself to be. Ordinary, natural, already done. This is where the light switch analogy comes in. And I love this one because it is so simple and so perfect. When you walk into a dark room and you flick the light switch, you do not stand there wondering whether the light will come on. You do not hope it will come on. You do not visualize it coming on and then anxiously wait. You just flick the switch and you assume the light will come on. You have already moved toward the lamp before the light has even reached you. The assumption is so total, so unquestioned, so settled that the question of whether it will happen does not arise. That is the energy of living in the end. Not hoping, not trying, just knowing with the same casual settled certainty as the flicking a light switch. And here is what makes this so powerful. The moment your subconscious accepts the end as already real, it begins assembling what Neville called the bridge of incidents, the sequence of events, people, ideas, and opportunities that will carry you from where you currently are to where you already decided you are going. You do not have to figure out the bridge. You do not have to plan the route or control the how or know the when. You just have to hold the end. The bridge takes care of itself. So how do you actually do this? Let me give you the most practical tool that Neville taught, and it is one you can start using tonight. He called it the state akin to sleep, SATS for short, and it is exactly what it sounds like. The drowsy, relaxed state you enter just before you fall asleep, where your conscious, analytical mind begins to soften and your subconscious becomes deeply open and receptive. In normal waking life, your conscious mind acts as a gatekeeper. It questions, doubts, argues. Tell it something new and it immediately pushes back with evidence of why that new thing is not true. But in the state akin to sleep, that threshold between waking and sleeping, the gatekeeper goes off duty. And whatever you impress on your subconscious in that state is accepted without resistance. Here is how to do it. As you lie down to sleep tonight, allow your body to fully relax. Take slow, deep breaths in and let the day go. When you feel yourself softening towards sleep, not fully asleep, but on the edge, bring to mind a short, simple scene of your desire already fulfilled. Step into it. Not watching it like a film, actually being there. Feeling the sensations of being in that moment, the physical details, the emotional quality, the complete ordinariness of it being your life, and then loop it. Gently repeat it over and over as you drift off. Let it be the last thing your subconscious mind holds before sleep takes you, and then let your subconscious carry it through the night. Think about planting a seed. You choose the seed carefully, you choose the specific plant you want to grow, you prepare the soil, you plant it at the right depth, and then you leave it alone. You do not dig it up every day to check if it is growing. You do not panic if you cannot see anything above the surface yet. You just trust the process because you know that beneath the soil, in the dark, the work is happening. SATS is the planting, the scene is your seed. The subconscious is the soil, and sleep is the dark where the real growth begins. Neville said that what you hold in your mind as you cross the threshold of sleep is what your subconscious works with all night. Hopefully 8 hours uninterrupted, no conscious doubt interfering. That is an extraordinary amount of time for your new assumption to take root. Use it. Now, I want to touch on something that catches almost everyone at some point, and that is the question of detachment. Because here is the paradox. The more you need something, the more you push it away. And the more settled and at peace you are about having it, the faster it arrives. This sounds counterintuitive. Surely the things we want most are the things we should be most focused on, most driven by, most emotionally invested in. And yet Neville and every teacher who has deeply understood this work points to the same thing. Desperate wanting is the energy of not having. And not having is exactly what you end up experiencing more of. Detachment is not indifference. It is not pretending you do not care. You care deeply. The desire is real and valid and worth having. Detachment is the quiet confidence of someone who knows the outcome is already decided. Someone who has placed the order and is simply getting on with their life while it arrives. Think about ordering something online. You find what you want, you go through checkout, you get the confirmation, and then you get on with your day. You do not sit by the door in a panic. You do not refresh the tracking every 25 minutes, wondering if it is really coming. You just know. The knowing is so complete that the question of whether it will arrive does not arise. That is the energy we are going for with every desire. Place the order, which is your SATs, your assumption, your scene. Get the confirmation, your inner knowing that it is done, and then go on with your life and let it arrive. And when doubt arises, because it will, you do not fight it or shame yourself for it. You simply notice it and return. Just a quiet internal redirect. This is already done. The outcome is already decided, and then you go back to living your day. Every time you choose the assumption over the doubt, you strengthen the assumption. Every time you return from the drift, you deepen the root. This is not a one-time event. It is a practice of returning again and again to what you have decided is true. So let me bring this all together before I let you go. Neville Goddard's work is not about wishing harder or thinking more positively. It is about understanding a fundamental law, that your assumptions create your reality, that your outer world is mirroring your inner world, that the feeling is the secret, that living in the end, treating your desire as already fulfilled in consciousness is not delusional, it is creation. And the practice is simple. Choose your assumption consciously. Build a short sensory scene of your desire already done. Enter that scene as you drift towards sleep. Feel the feeling of arrival, not striving, arriving. And then get on with your life from that assumption, taking inspired action, trusting the bridge, and returning every time you drift. That is it. That is the whole thing. Simple, not always easy, but genuinely simple. Your imagination is not a step toward reality. It is reality itself. If today's episode has landed for you, share it with someone you think needs to hear this. Leave a review if you feel moved to. And keep an eye out on my socials because I'm in the process of creating a course which I think you're going to love if you loved this episode. So go over to Becoming with Beck and go hit follow so you don't miss when this lands. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next episode.